Let's go Broncos! In the last few hours, we received some news straight from behind the scenes. It seems that the Denver Broncos are making a serious move to fix their inside linebacker problem. That's the big question after a season in which that position proved to be the Achilles heel of the defense. The Broncos are analyzing all their options, and we just got a big clue about what could come next. I'll tell you all the details in a moment, but first, make sure you hit the like button if you agree that it's time for Javonte Williams to go. In your opinion, who would be the ideal linebacker for the Denver Broncos to be more secure next season? Leave your comment. We received a list of possible roster cuts, and no surprises, Javonte Williams' name is on that list. But the real focus here is on the inside linebacker position. Sean Payton and defensive coordinator Vance Joseph have both pointed out that this is an area of concern. The team started the season short on linebackers, and when Alex Singleton went down with a torn ACL, Cody Barton had to step up. While Barton has exceeded expectations, it's clear the Broncos need more at the position. That's where free agency and the NFL draft come in. There's been a lot of talk about the Broncos being linked to Zach Bond because of his past connection to Sean Payton, but realistically, Bond is poised to cash in after a breakout season. Alex Singleton is currently on a 3-year, $18 million deal, but Bond is projected to command somewhere in the neighborhood of $55 million over 4 years. That's a huge price tag and could put him out of Denver's reach. So, what's the alternative? ESPN's insiders predict the Broncos could make a move for Kansas City Chiefs linebacker Nick Bolton. This would be a game changer. Not only would Denver upgrade at linebacker, but they'd also weaken their biggest division rival. Bolton would come at a much lower cost than Bond and provide the kind of physical presence the Broncos desperately need in the middle of their defense. And let's talk about what's happening in Kansas City. Coming off a devastating Super Bowl loss, the Chiefs are going to face a real challenge in bouncing back. History tells us that losing a Super Bowl can take a serious toll on a team. Just look at what Deebo Samuel said about the 49ers' struggles after their loss. Players go into a deep depression, and before they know it, the next season is already starting. Even Patrick Mahomes was seen getting a haircut recently, which might not sound like much, but some are saying that loss hit him harder than people realize. If the Broncos can steal a key defensive piece from the Chiefs while they're trying to regroup, that would be a massive win. Sean Payton has been clear about his team-building philosophy every offseason. It's like flipping a puzzle upside down and rebuilding it. That means evaluating every piece of the roster, from free agents to draft picks to trades. And when it comes to inside linebacker, Payton knows that you typically don't spend high draft capital on that position. Historically, the most productive inside linebackers come from free agency or trades rather than the first round of the draft. Instead, the Broncos could focus their early draft picks on explosive playmakers like a running back or tight end. The impact of first-year running backs like Jahmyr Gibbs and tight ends like Brock Bowers has been undeniable. They can contribute immediately, while defensive players, especially inside linebackers, often take longer to adjust to the NFL. Speaking of running backs, there's another major name linked to the Broncos, Aaron Jones. It was a shock when he left Green Bay, especially after his dominant performance against Dallas where he was picking up 5 yards a carry. Even with below-average quarterback play, he helped carry the Vikings' offense. If the Broncos decide to move on from Javonte Williams, Jones could be a massive addition. Another name in the mix? Najee Harris. If Sean Payton wants a physical, downhill runner, Harris could be the answer. But one thing is clear, Payton has moved on from Latavius Murray, and it looks like he's looking for a fresh start at running back. On the draft side of things, there's a lot of buzz about quarterbacks rising up draft boards, which is actually great news for the Broncos. They're sitting at pick number 20, and if 3 quarterbacks, like Jackson Dart, Cameron Ward, and Shadur Sanders, go off the board early, that pushes better players down to Denver's range. The more teams that reach for quarterbacks, the better the odds that a top-tier talent at another position falls to the Broncos. And let's not forget how well the Broncos have drafted in recent years. Their first-round pick last year, Bo Nix, was widely criticized, but now even national analysts are admitting it was an incredible pick. If you compare Nix's season to the history of the Chicago Bears, for example, he would have put up one of the best quarterback seasons that franchise has ever seen. That's the kind of impact we're talking about. As for the financial side of things, the salary cap keeps rising, which is a huge boost for Denver. Despite eating a massive dead cap hit from Russell Wilson, the Broncos are in a much better financial position than expected. One of the biggest reasons? The explosion of streaming deals. YouTube TV and other platforms are bringing in massive revenue, and now Netflix is bidding for exclusive NFL rights. That means even more money flowing into the league and a higher salary cap, giving Denver more flexibility in free agency. So where does that leave the Broncos? The odds of them winning the Super Bowl are currently 40-1. Compare that to last year when they had Russell Wilson and were sitting at 150-1. That's a massive jump, and it tells you how much confidence there is in the direction of this team. The big question now is, how should Denver address the inside linebacker position? Do you want them to go all in on Nick Bolton? Should they take a chance on Zach Bond despite the price tag? And what about running back? Do you want to see Aaron Jones or Najee Harris in orange and blue next season? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. One of the biggest challenges facing the Broncos this offseason is making sure they don't overpay for talent while still filling their biggest needs. Inside linebacker and running back are clear priorities, but there's also the question of where this team stands at quarterback. And that's where things get really interesting. With Denver picking at number 20 in the NFL draft, a lot of fans have been wondering, could the Broncos still draft a quarterback? The short answer? Probably not. And that's actually a good thing. Right now, draft experts are projecting that at least 3, possibly 4 quarterbacks could go in the first round: Jackson Dart, Cameron Ward, Shedeur Sanders, and possibly even a wild card like Quinn Ewers or Michael Penix Jr. If that happens, it means Denver is guaranteed to have an elite talent at another position fall right into their lap at pick number 20. That's the dream scenario when you're not in the market for a quarterback. Every time a team ahead of you reaches for a QB, it pushes a top-tier pass rusher, offensive lineman, or skill player down the board. Think about it. Denver doesn't need a cornerback because they already have one of the best young secondaries in the NFL. They don't need offensive tackles because they're set there. So, every time a team ahead of them drafts one of those positions, it just makes their pick at number 20 even stronger. And let's be real, drafting a quarterback doesn't fix things right away. Even some of the best QB prospects take years to develop, and Denver is in a position where they need impact players right now. That's why guys like Nick Bolton in free agency or an explosive playmaker in the draft could be the smarter path forward. Speaking of free agency, the Broncos' financial situation is looking better than expected. The salary cap is increasing significantly, and Denver is in a much better spot compared to last year. A big reason for that? Streaming revenue. YouTube TV has already been pumping money into the NFL's pockets, and now Netflix is getting involved, bidding on exclusive rights to air games. That's a huge deal. More money coming into the league means the salary cap keeps rising, and that gives Denver more financial flexibility to go after impact players. Now, let's get into something that's going to fire up Broncos country, the AFC West. The Kansas City Chiefs are vulnerable. Yes, they're coming off a Super Bowl appearance, but history tells us that teams coming off a Super Bowl loss tend to struggle the next season. Deebo Samuel has already talked about how brutal it was mentally for the 49ers after their last Super Bowl loss, and if you listen to some of the chatter around Kansas City, there's reason to believe they could take a step back. So now it's time to hear from you. What do you think? Should the Broncos go all in on Nick Bolton? Would you rather see them make a play for Zach Bond, even if it means spending big money? And what about running back? Do you want to see Aaron Jones in orange and blue next season, or would Najee Harris be the better fit? Let me know in the comments, and as always, make sure you're subscribed for all the latest Broncos updates. We've got a huge offseason ahead, and this team is making moves. Broncos country, get ready, because we're just getting started.